Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Saskia Brown, and I'm absolutely delighted to have my guest today, Jacob Little. How are you going today?
Going good, thank you, mate. Thanks for having me on.
It is an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate you coming. I have been waiting so long for you to get you in the studio. I have been waiting so long. Your story is so impactful. Your mission is so powerful. And what you've managed to alchemize as a human being is really incredible. So before we get started, I just want to give you some props for that. So well done.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that.
So throughout sharing your story, we're obviously going to tap into what you're doing professionally as well. But I noticed in some of your reels, you have a really clever way of just capturing a little bit about your story that summarizes it in a few sentences.
Yeah.
Before we get started, would you mind just telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah.
In a short, brief few sentences like you normally do?
Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, so I'm a lived experience person. My dad served a 16-and-a-half-year prison sentence. So from the young ages of 10 years old, I grew up in housing commission, a lot of domestic violence, drinking, and a lot of the other kids in the area. Parents or brothers were in jail, and I was visiting jails from basically 10 years old. So by the time I was 17, it was sort of a product of the system, and then I went into jail. I turned 18 in jail. On my 18th birthday, I got transferred to a men's facility. But when I was in the sort of boys' yard or youth detention centre section, I suffered SA there. So now I'm an advocate against perpetrators who do SA on kids or anyone, and also I'm an advocate for prisoners, because most of the people that we help are incarcerated from, I suppose, trying to block out what they've been through self-medication, drug use, serious drug use disorders. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. And I feel like we're just getting started, aren't we? Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think a really good place to start, Jacob, is your childhood.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, of course.
Could you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, so just an FYI for everyone, my mum's in the room right now. So me and my mum lived together predominantly most of my life. I lived with my little sister as well. My mum and dad broke up from probably since I was about 1 or 2. I was very young.
Yeah.
So it's always been me and my mum. Then my little sister come along, and mum always turned up for me and my little sister. Always done her best, which was amazing. But yeah, she'd come from humble beginnings too. So over the years, we grew up in housing commission. Mum was always working very hard to make sure that there was always food on the table for me and my little sister. So mum and dad broke up from a young age, and on school holidays, I used to go visit my father. So my father was a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang, and
wow.
Yeah, so that was a bit difficult to navigate. But although when I was a young kid, I didn't really understand what it was. He would just all his mates would just be wearing the same t-shirts, or all had shit haircuts. And nah, they had good dirty wacky mullets. But
yeah.
So from that young age, I sort of grew up around that. And then my dad went to jail when I was 10 years old. I remember I was sitting on the couch with my mum. I just finished having dinner. I think at that time it might have been around 6 to 7 or 8 p.m. I remember specifically because the news was coming on, then The Simpsons would come on, then Home and Away would come on. That was Mum's show to watch, wasn't mine. But I remember I was watching the news just before all this stuff Simpsons started, and I seen my dad on TV. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my goodness.
What's doing? And
what was going through your head?
Yeah, I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. Mum didn't know either, because my father had a different missus at the time, and I suppose they didn't know how to react. That was our first interaction with the criminal justice system.
Oh my goodness. And both of you experiencing that together would have been such a shock.
Yeah, I just remember running to my room, and I was just laying in the dark crying, and me and Mum really didn't know what to do, and Mum come in and she was like, it's all right, son, it's going to be okay. Just patted me on the back. I was laying in the room crying. It was dark. And I just remember in my head, I was like, how can I fix this situation? I want to get my dad out of here. and all I could think of was going down to the local police station and blowing it up and getting him out. He was in jail. I'd obviously never do that, but I sort of thought that was the way I could help. So from the young ages of 10 years old, we were still living in housing commission. There's a lot of domestic violence, a lot of drinking, and all the other guys in my neighbourhood, like brothers or sisters, were in that life. I remember specifically where we lived. It was called the Zoo. So it was like a...
Whereabouts is this, sorry?
The Zoo is in Newcastle.
Okay.
I think it was Swansea. And it was like housing estate. It was just one strip. So it was like a townhouse, like just all townhouses all lined up.
Yeah.
And I remember there's a set of toilets in there, and there was no actual toilets in the toilet block. They were just all smashed out. There was just all fits, dirty needles, guys just using. There was like pedophiles and stuff like that lived where we lived. So from that young age, I remember that, just them street rules, street justice. I remember going down the road one day and there was a pedophile that recently got out of jail, and someone that was very close to me seen him and bottled him and said, don't go near my family, my friends, or... Yeah.
What a reality to live in.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. So...
Wow. And so how old were you at this point?
I would have been around... I remember under 10. Yeah.
Already, exposed to quite a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you're starting to get into your teen years, how did everything you'd already experienced start impacting you? Were you changing? Were you getting involved in certain things, or what was sort of happening for you at that point?
Yeah, well, Mum identified that I was starting to fuck up.
Yeah.
I was getting invites all the time. I remember, just a lot of fighting and hanging around all the other kids from the neighbourhood that I suppose were in houses as well. So it was like, when you live in housing commission, I think now maybe some places there might be just like a house randomly in maybe a nice area, but like everywhere where we lived, it was like houses. So all the other kids in the area had similar, things experiencing, maybe mum and dad drinking, or maybe incarceration, drugs.
Yeah, and I guess to a degree, all of you at that time were a product of your environment, right? So I know you've mentioned previously that you were the president of a chapter of a bikie club, and you led a street gang. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
When did the steps towards those things start happening in your life? Was that in your teens, or and when did that all when did you start heading down a path towards that life?
So when I started getting towards the end of high school, I was like 17. Started hanging around like a different group of guys, because previously I played a lot of footy. I grew up going to the gym, playing footy, touch footy, sporty. I wish I stayed in that, and I really recommend for kids to stay in that. And if you have any kids that are starting to get in trouble, keep them in the sports.
100%.
I think it's a really good thing to teach kids different skills and camaraderie, teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Amen.
But I remember I started hanging around the wrong set of guys. But like at the end of the day, I would say I hung around the wrong set of guys. Like I was the one who made that decision to hang out with them, but we're getting in fights. One of my mates got caved at a party, and we went to a different party to like get the other people who caved bash my mate.
Yeah. And
it was the wrong people, and like we just like smashed the whole house up. I feel really bad for a lot of the things I've done in my past. That was one of them.
Yeah.
That people were innocent.
Yeah.
The whole house got smashed up. Anyway, so I got charged, me and my coie, and me and my coie were both on bail, and I had really strict bail conditions, so I wasn't allowed out. I had curfew, so I wasn't allowed out after like 6 p.m. I had to reside at my mother's address. So I was 17 years old, wasn't allowed to commit any further criminal offences. And 3 days later, that Friday night, I took ecstasy, I think, for my first time, and I was drinking goon. So that's not a good mix. And I remember I walked across the road and robbed somebody. So I basically jacked someone, took their stuff, and walked back across the road to my house. World's dumbest criminal. They see me walk back to my own place. So the cops come and kick my door in, and I was denying it until I died. Anyway, I was pretty lucky because they missed a couple of things, and I probably could have been in jail for a little bit longer than what I ended up serving. But so they pulled me out the front.
Yeah.
and they said, "Did you rob somebody?" And I said, "No." I just want to ask you a question. How much money do you think I got?
You're asking me this?
Yeah.
At that moment or right now?
No. Like, how much do you think when I robbed this person?
Oh. Okay, this is really hard. $1,000?
Lower.
No.
Lower.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. 500.
Lower.
300.
Lower.
200.
I got $10. So the cops started patting me down, and I was denying it, and then they checked my skyrocket, my back pocket, and they pulled out his wallet, so I was pinched red-handed. Yeah, so I remember waking up in the watch house thinking, fuck, what the fuck's going on here? I didn't remember what had happened. I was sort of putting bits and pieces together.
Yeah,
If you've had a really big, messy night, sometimes you can't remember. I get blackout. I have in the past got blackout drunk and I can't remember what happened. That was one of them times, taking ecstasy, and goon.
Wow.
Yeah.
And experiences like that, I assume you've had quite a few given what you've gone through.
Yeah.
How did it transition from that to becoming part of organised crime?
So when I was in jail, I got locked up at Southport Watch House. So Gold Coast, Southport Watch House is where the courthouse is. They have Magistrates Court, they have District Court.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I suppose I went from there to Brisbane Correctional Centre. So Brisbane Correctional Centre is a men's maximum security jail.
Right.
So inside of the men's maximum security jail, they had a Brisbane Boys Yard section. So
how old were you at this point?
17-year-old.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was 17.
Yep.
So anyone under 17 went to Brisbane Youth Detention Centre, BYDC. Then if you're 17, you go to the Boys Yard. Then when you turn 18, you go to jail.
Wow.
So on my 18th birthday, I got transferred from Brisbane Correctional Centre to Arthur Gorrie, aka R&R. So it's a remand centre.
Yep.
Because I was actually on bail at the time. So there's a difference between if you're sentenced and on bail. I wasn't on bail at that time. Well, I was technically on bail from the previous charges before I committed the robbery, but I hadn't been sentenced. So if you haven't been sentenced, you'll be in a remand centre. This sounds really confusing. But
No. I really appreciate you explaining this
Yeah.
because a lot of people listening to this wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No, it's okay. So because in the Boys Yard section, there was only one area for us. It didn't matter if you were sentenced
Yep.
or you were still on remand. Because if you were on remand, you'd go to Arthur Gorrie Correctional Centre, which is a purely remand centre. And then if you're sentenced, you'd go to like Brisbane Correctional Centre, Woodford Correctional Centre, Maryborough Correctional Centre. So they're all sentence prisons.
Yep.
So yeah, I went from BCC to R&R on my 18th birthday. And when I got there, my father had another gang member who was in that jail. So my father was incarcerated. He was about 10 years into his 16.5-year prison sentence in the New South Wales prison system.
Yep.
So he sent a message up to one of his boys and said, Jacob's coming in. And then I started hanging around the other member in the men's maximum security jail, R&R. And that's where I first started properly getting involved with like active gang members. Yeah.
So you essentially got recruited through the prison system.
Well, yeah, parts of it I learned a lot. I learned what to do, what not to do. I was very lucky that my father had sent up that message because I had older crims or like heavies or like people who knew the go, like say,
Yeah.
This is what you do, this is what you don't do.
Yeah.
Don't say that word. If you call someone a dog, like in everyday society now, like if your mate didn't didn't get you a Coke at
It'd
the
be
shop.
a joke.
Yeah, you'd be like,
Yeah.
you're a dog.
Yeah.
Like, and heaps of people say that, but when you're in jail or in that criminal lifestyle, if someone that says that to you, you have to attack them on sight. Like, it's very serious. So, like, learning all them little things, not getting
Survival
involved.
techniques.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And 99% of the prison system shares drugs in jail. They're shooting up in jail. I've seen guys share the same needle, like, all day, every day. Like, they just mix up one spoon, 10 guys, let's go. Like, same blood. Most guys have Hep C. So,
Yeah.
like, they said, stay away from that. Don't get involved in politics or drugs.
So sort of looking out for you. Obviously, I understand people are listening now going, I can't believe perhaps Jacob's father was involved and may even think he's influenced you. But it's not a black and white topic, is it? I think there's nuance and I am glad that you were looked out for in that sense, because surviving that environment without having those resources and understanding of that environment at your disposal could have been deadly for you.
Yeah, definitely. I have so many people reach out to me. As I said earlier, I'm an advocate for prisoners. So, like, I have a lot of people's loved ones, aka like their mum or their missus or a brother, sister, mother, father, always reaching out for me with questions. They might think in their head, oh, this is a silly question, so I got a policy out about Time for Justice, no silly questions. If anybody...
I've seen that.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions about incarceration or criminal justice affected anything, hit me up. Yeah.
I'm shortly going to be asking you a bit more about that, by the way. But before we do, I think, if I'm really honest with you, there is curiosity in my followers about your story and what it is actually like to be involved, you know, as a bikie or a gang member. Would you be willing to share a little bit about what that experience was like? And this is not to glamorize that. I want to make that clear to my followers that neither of us try to glamorize that.
Yeah.
But we don't meet people like you every day.
Yeah. It's fine.
What would you be willing to share?
Ask anything.
Obviously, you don't have to go into the specifics of everything, because I trust it's confidential and whatnot. But what sort of activities would people expect to find being a part of a club?
Okay. So to become a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang, you have to go through a sort of like a process.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a member of, say, I'm just going to use an example. You know, just we'll call it 1% of bikies on the Gold Coast. That's just a made-up name.
What does that mean for people that don't know?
So a outlaw motorcycle gang is generally a 1%.
Yep.
Like a 1%er. So
yep.
You're like a bikie 1%er.
Yep.
That's sort of the language that's used.
Sure.
So you'll have your back patch, and then you'll have like a 1%er on it.
Yeah.
So to become a bikie, you have to go through like a nominee period. You're just like an apprentice. So you're like basically an apprentice, and you're essentially like a little bitch.
Yeah.
You have to do whatever the members tell you to do. That could be just normal day-to-day stuff, like, can you take me for a drive to the shops? But yeah, there's also crimes that you may need to commit to get the job done. You might need to do whatever it is that the club asks from you, and you have to do it. It's either do it or you don't make it through that nominee part.
To go up the ranks.
Yeah, to become a member.
Yeah.
So a typical, I suppose, week for me looked like, because we had a clubhouse.
Yeah.
So at the clubhouse, most weekends would have a party. So at the party, there would be people serving drinks. There'd be girls coming down. So like titty girls. So would be behind the bar with the titty girls serving drinks to members.
Yeah.
Or like people who would come in from the public. But you couldn't just walk in off the street. You'd have to be invited in.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot of discernment is a buzzword for today, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And so you ended up a president of a chapter.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, it took some time to get to that position. So I had to go through my nominee period. Then I was a member for a certain amount of time. But yeah, it was really hard. I was only pretty young.
How old were you?
I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I would have been between 26 and 28. I was a nominee and member for around about 5 years. Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
For someone of that age.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
It was really hard. Some of the things that we were asked to do, I had to do.
Yeah.
And I regret doing some of the things that I had to do. It went against my morals. Like, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't want to do it, and I had to do things to people that were close to me, that joined the club So when you come through the recruitment of a club, I said you had to be a nominee. So I had to do things to people that were actually I recruited in.
Yeah.
Because they fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I recruited them in. They were going through the nominee.
To keep the order of the club.
Yeah. So it was like my responsibility. So I had to take care of the business, but what I had to do, it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that guy who I had to take care of the business. He's still in jail right now. He's serving like a 10-year sentence for drug trafficking.
That's
So
heavy.
yeah.
And so now leaning into your life now and the
Yeah.
impact you're making, which I'm so excited to talk about.
Yeah.
Was there a defining moment in your life where you're like, fuck this, this isn't it for me? What was that moment for you? When was that?
I like to call that the moment I realised the penny dropped or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
So Dad was in jail.
How old were you at the time?
I was a bit older. I think I was more towards the end of my... What was he been out for? I think I was about 26 or 20. I'm really bad with dates.
That's okay.
My memory is cooked from taking so many drugs
It's fine.
and partying over the years. But I think I was about 26 or 27.
Okay.
So Dad had just started getting weekend release. So he was at Glen Innes Correctional Centre. I was work release first, so he was in a low security, like farm jail. So during the week he'd go out and do things in the community, like clean up the park, go into town and go to shops. So it was just sort of progressing. And then he got weekend release. So me and my little brother and sister used to go down and travel to my nan's place. So she lived in Glen Innes. So on the weekends he'd get out, he'd have an ankle bracelet on, jewelry, and he would be monitored, so he couldn't go anywhere. I think he was only allowed maybe out of the house after a certain time, and during the day we could go up to the shops. Yeah. So Dad's parole conditions were non-association. So non-association means that you're not allowed to hang around any active gang members, former gang members, crims. Because I actually joined the same gang that my dad was in.
Yeah.
So the same outlaw motorcycle gang, 1% club. We were in the same club, and that non-association meant that we would be in the same category. So I don't know if I was under investigation at the time, because my plan was to say that I was going to be out of the club. So his parole officer said to him, if Jacob gets caught lying about you being that he's out of the club and you two get caught associating, the worst case scenario would be I put him back in jail, and best case scenario would be that I wouldn't be allowed to see him. So that was the moment that penny dropped.
Moment for you.
Yeah.
This is where you're at a crossroad.
Yeah.
So what did you decide?
Well, family always comes first for me, so I went and told the club that I'm out. At this time, I was no longer a president. I think I may have been a vice president or even just a member at that time. And so I went and told them, and they understood. And I stepped away, but it was like one of the hardest points in my life, stepping away.
I can only imagine the multiple reasons why that would be hard, just coming from the background that I've grown up in.
Yeah.
Stepping away from things like that is not taken lightly, and it's also a massive culture shock.
Yeah.
And what is on the other side of that professionally, and what are people going to say, and are you going to be considered an enemy? I'm sure there was a lot of stuff running through your mind. It's extremely brave of you. Honestly, I really mean that. So fast forward now. About Time for Justice, NDIS space, you're doing some really incredible stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, of course. So About Time for Justice was founded in 2020 with the compensation money that myself and my father received for going through institutional child abuse. So my essay took place inside of Brisbane Boys Yard, and my father's essay took place inside of his local primary school.
Okay.
So we predominantly work in the prison systems around Australia and in the community with survivors that have been through any Australian institution. So it could be boys' home, girls' home, foster cares, DOCs, any youth detention centres, any churches or church-run institutions, any missions, reserves, community-based groups, sporting teams, Girl Scouts, Scouts. So when I say schools too, that could be any school, private, public, boarding. The foster care system is known as different things in different states and territories. So it could be a foster home into a group home, it could be fostered out to a family. Some people, it's called ward estate. And also the churches are really bad perpetrators. Church-run schools, church-run Sunday schools, church on Sundays, church pastors or ministers that have gone to lower socioeconomic areas and grooming the parents, taking kids out on camping trips. So we help to identify if survivors have a case of institutional child SA, and then we give them options if they would like to, on how they'd like to start healing, to put in compensation claims, to put them in touch with mental health practitioners, get them on their mental health care plans.
What made you decide to do this work specifically? I know you've experienced it firsthand, but then you've experienced quite a lot, right? So there would have been many different avenues. You could have taken your lived experience and done something for the community. What was it about this space that you decided this is where I belong?
Well, there were so many shit lawyers for me when I was growing up, and I felt like what I was doing, supporting and advocating for survivors, was amazing. So I sort of stepped away from that life, started working, and then I was given the opportunity to start my own organisation with the compensation money I received, and the organisation that I was working for gave me their blessing to go out and start About Time for Justice. So I started my organisation because I wanted to support other people like myself that have been through it. And I was lucky because I was given the opportunity to start my own organisation, but then I was also had an idea in my head to start studying. So they said, well, why don't you start studying? And so when I started studying, it was TPPs, like a tertiary preparation program.
Yep.
Then I got into a Bachelor of Arts majoring in legal studies. So I wanted to help people out in a bigger way. So I am studying law now. And a part of the reason why I wanted to start my business and study law is so that one day I can be a lawyer. So I'm a second-year law student at the moment.
This gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
You're an epic human, hey.
Oh,
you really are. And I can't wait to see that come to fruition for you. It's gangster.
Yeah.
Honestly. Can you imagine what that's going to feel like? I mean, you've already done such a huge transformation. Everything you've achieved up to this point is exceptional. What you've turned around is exceptional. I mean, adding a lawyer to the mix is going to be a Netflix series, if you ask me. So, who are your main clients? Who do you mostly help?
Yeah, so at the moment, it would be a mixture of sort of everyone. What I've seen over the years is institutions, they do not discriminate. We do a lot of work with First Nations communities. So over the years, I've been to a lot of First Nations communities all over Australia. Done a lot of work with that prison mob. Mostly people I would say would, and this isn't a type of person, but criminal justice affected demographic.
Yeah. Okay.
Because most of the survivors that I help, they're struggling with their trauma, trying to block out what they've been through, so they self-medicate. But some of the communities that I've been to around Australia, in New South Wales, I've been to Bourke, Brewarrina, Walgett, Dubbo, Moree. In Queensland, I've been to Cherbourg, Palm Island, Warrabinda.
On the map.
Yeah.
Making your way.
Yeah, definitely.
That is powerful. I actually was really impressed to see how much movement you have, and I think what's really powerful about what you're creating isn't just the purpose and the mission, but I think a lot of people set up businesses and organizations that say that they're here to make real change.
Yeah.
The essence of your content and you actually going and doing the real thing and really your passion and drive is navigating the change at the highest level. I think as someone who has experienced some of the things you're talking about, sometimes you're dealing with organizations and you just feel like another number. Maybe it's because they don't have lived experience.
Yeah.
But I think it's the heart and soul of how you do the things that is really what caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to have you here. And I guess another question I've got for you, Jacob, is you've gone through a lot, right? You've overcome so much. Even if people haven't gone through institutional SA, even if they haven't been involved in organised crime, you have wisdom, right? As a man, as a young man, what are the values that you have that help you stay on your new path, like that other people can maybe get inspiration from?
Yeah, I think a big thing of how I always stay on track and how I just keep working towards my goals and trying to change myself and to be better is having a clear vision and mission. So our mission at About Time for Justice is to help all survivors of institutional child abuse seek justice, start healing, while giving the voiceless their voices back. So that's my mission at my business. But also I have a bigger set of goals, I suppose, which is separate to your mission. But every single day, I do like what I call a power list, and it's
tell us about the power
Yeah.
list. Yeah, what's that involve?
So it's like a to-do list, and it's 5 things that I have to do each day to get a W. W is a win.
Yeah.
So I have to do these 5 things. They're non-negotiables, and I have to do them every single day. So.
And out of curiosity, where does the power list live? Is it in your notes in your phone? That's where I keep mine because I'm always on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't call it a power list, but is that a good idea to keep it somewhere handy?
Well, I've worked from home since 2020, so essentially I have my work from home set up. I have my desk, and it's always on my desk, and I take a photo of it as well, so in case I go out,
yeah, cool,
I can look at it. And I have alarms set in my phone.
What are the alarms for?
Check your power list. Or a meeting coming up.
That's cool. That's cool. Oh my goodness, you are one hell of a human being. You really are. And I know you mentioned before we came into the studio today that family comes before everything. What does family look like now for you in terms of your relationship with your father, and how often do you get to interact with the rest of your family, and what does family life look like? Yeah,
so family for me is super important. So at the moment, my priorities in my life would definitely be my family, and then probably my business, and then my mental health and training, and then my university. So my days at the moment and family life look like I live with my mum. My mum has a really rare disability called multiple system atrophy of the cerebellum, and she was diagnosed with this disability only sort of in the more recent years, because it's actually so rare, and there's no cure to this disability, that you can't actually be properly diagnosed, because the way that you do it's a bit intrusive. So I spend a lot of time at home with my mum. My dad lives very close to me. It was my nan's 80th birthday on the weekend. So
lovely.
Yeah, all the family got together, but mostly I spend time with mum. And my nan, my dad will come over, my little nephew, and my sister coming over as well this weekend for Easter. But just a lot of family time. That's sort of.
That's good. And I know you mentioned you have a partner. What sort of role does she play in, is she involved in your business, or is she a big supporter of what you do?
Definitely a big supporter.
Good.
Definitely pushes me to be a best version of myself. Push each other. I think it's important to have somebody that wants to win as well, and sort of wants to do things that you want to do.
And I think it also is important, after going through so much, that you have discernment. Again, coming back to that key word, which really applies to you. Having the right partner when you have such a strong mission. So let's take our hat off to her, because I mean, you're doing incredible things and going amazing places, and she is obviously playing a really key role in supporting you with that. That's powerful. It's really powerful.
Love you, Mum.
So you've shared some pretty interesting stuff. Your life is very interesting. On the lighter side of things, what does Jacob like to do to have fun?
I really love going to the gym.
I
love training a lot. I'm in training for Gold Coast Marathon at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So July 7th, I'm kicking off again. Hoping to get another personal best, and also to raise money to a foundation that aligns very closely with my mother's disability. So
what's it called?
Fight Parkinson's Foundation. So last year I think we raised really close to 10k.
Jesus,
which is pretty cool.
That's epic. You've got your finger in a lot of pies, hey?
I don't know how I do it sometimes.
I don't know how you do it either. Give me some tips.
I'm
gonna have to go write that power list, I think. So going to the gym, being active is a big part. Do you enjoy making content? You seem to be pretty good at that.
I love making content. I feel like making content's probably is the favourite part of my day at the moment. So I have a group of guys that we're called the Knockaround guys. So does
that involve Run That Rehab? I love your content when you guys are all collabing. Such a vibe. So love it.
Last night and every single Monday night at 7 p.m. we do a live stream on TikTok. So all my handles on everything is Jacob_little111. I say little funny, so it's L-I-T for Tom, T again, L-E, so Jacob_little. Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram. I've got Facebook as well. But we do our live streams on TikTok. So if you want to see all of our faces, we do that every night, and it's around drugs and alcohol, recovery, addiction, incarceration, survivors. Yeah, just trying to be better after coming from that life.
Yep.
So a lot of people are stuck in it.
And in terms of About Time for Justice and your NDIS involvement, is the best place to reach out via socials?
Yeah.
Or your website?
So if you want to reach out to me personally, the best way to reach me is my personal Instagram.
Yep.
But if anything about Time for Justice, you're better off to Google About Time for Justice.
Okay.
And for the NDIS business, it's Rainbow Respite. I'll just also tell people, like, we specialise in helping people that have been through incarceration, trauma, with support work.
Yep.
So a support worker can help you out, especially if you're criminal justice affected, to pick you up from the front gate from jail, to take you to parole, to take you to bail, to take you to get your medication, to take you to go see your lawyer. Also with other day-to-day living activities, going to the shops, helping out around the house, making food, sort of anything, community access, getting down to the beach, going to the gym. So that's one part of what we do. But then we also do support coordination. So support coordination in the NDIS sort of helps people if they have an NDIS plan. So if you did want to engage us as your support worker or support coordinator, you need to have an NDIS plan.
Yeah.
So a participant on the NDIS will have a plan, say for example $100,000. The support coordinator will organise the support worker, organise any allied health professionals, a psych, speech pathologist, any physio, any ongoing other treatments that you may need. Any mobility sort of things, like if you do need to get a wheelchair, they need to organise an OT to do an assessment. Any modifications and things like that around the house you need an OT for.
Awesome.
So we do support work and support coordination, and we're based on the Gold Coast.
Yep.
And we're open to taking on more participants around Gold Coast to north side of Brisbane area. We also do remote and in person for support coordination. So if you are in a different state or territory, a lot of that support coordination can be done over the phone.
That is such important information, and I want to thank you so much for coming to the studio, Jacob. It's been an absolute pleasure, and like I mentioned earlier, I was really looking forward to getting you in here. I'm so fascinated by your journey, and again, I want to thank you for choosing to be here. I know that there's a lot of people tugging at you for you to give them your time.
Yeah.
So it's really been an honour and a privilege. Thank you so much for coming today.
No, thanks for having me on.
High five.
Yeah. High five.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Well done, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely.